If you're a fan of Demon Slayer and engage in any sort of extracurricular discussion about the series at all, you've probably heard the following question posed. How powerful would characters like Rengoku or Tengen be if they reached their full potential and weren't hindered by the circumstances that actually happened in the series? In Tengen's case, he was forced into early retirement due to his injuries and his battle against Upper Rank 6, and in Rengoku's case, well, yeah. Today, I want to specifically focus on Tengen since I think there's more to talk about in his case, and I sort of did a video about Rengoku's full potential a long time ago when I discussed how the series would unfold differently if he got the Demon Slayer mark. I think one of the biggest reasons people ask how strong Tengen could have gotten is because literally one arc later, we see someone blitzing a demon that's an entire rank higher than the one Tengen fought. But I'm more so raising awareness of how fast the power levels of the series rose after Tengen quit the core, and after Muichiro got even stronger from the Hashira training. Even with his Demon Slayer mark, he was still a lot weaker and slower than some of the base form Hashira like Sanemi. So the power creep got a little crazy towards the end of the series, and the perception around Tengen already is that he was one of the strongest base form Hashira, at least pre-Hashira training. So people think he would get extremely strong, which I don't doubt. I think he would get extremely powerful if he got all these upgrades that the other characters got. For the sake of the video, to properly gauge what a full potential Tengen would have looked like, Tengen needs to survive his battle with Gyutaro without being gravely injured. That means he needs to keep both of his arms and eyes. So just pretend that Tengen never lost his arm and never lost his eye and still somehow beat Gyutaro. I will still be referencing the events of this fight as it's important to gauge his strength, but just for the video's sake, assume he somehow regenerated after his fight or something, or his injuries just didn't happen. Everything else in the story is completely the same, including him beating Gyutaro with Kamaboko. A good baseline to assert how strong Tengen is to look at the very fight he had with Upper Rank 6, and it's established pretty much as soon as he engages in combat that he's in a totally different league than most fighters in the series, at least up to this point. As when he first makes his appearance against Upper 6, he cuts off Daki's head without her even noticing due to his speed. We find out shortly after that Daki isn't actually that big of a threat and Gyutaro is the real honcho of Upper 6, but it's still established that he's way out of the league of Tanjiro and Kamaboko. The most important thing I want to point out is Tengen is slightly outsped by Gyutaro, and this is before he gets poisoned. And this is when Gyutaro is off guard and has less time to react. This just tells us right off the bat that he's not as fast as Gyutaro, but he's still relative enough in speed to react to him and combat him. This obviously poisons him, which makes a lot of people skeptical of how strong Tengen actually is after this. I'm sort of under the interpretation that the poison isn't actually hindering Tengen's speed, since logically, if it was, Gyutaro should just be able to outspeed him really badly by the end of the fight, or probably even midway through the fight, as the poison racks up its DOT or whatever. But throughout the entire fight, they remain within relative speeds of each other, at least before Tengen uses his musical score ability. Tengen also needs sound breathing to apply consistent pressure on Gyutaro and match his own blood demon arts, and what we can draw from all this is that the two are pretty relative in ability, and Tengen is clear-cut a Upper Moon 6 level combatant, at least in his base form. This analysis wouldn't be complete if I didn't mention one of Tengen's unique abilities, the musical score, which is honestly pretty busted and allows Tengen after some time to drastically increase the pace and finesse he employs in combat. This ability doesn't make him physically faster or physically stronger, but allows him to essentially pre-cog any of his opponent's maneuvers near instantaneously and counter appropriately. It's extremely similar to the transparent world in actual function. I also think this ability is kind of downplayed and pretty crazy once you realize that while extremely damaged, fatigued, and poisoned, he started performing better against Gyutaro than he was when he was fully healthy. With just one arm and nerfed perception, he was pressuring Gyutaro and overpowering his blood demon art, so even though in base form Tengen may not be as strong as an opponent like Upper 5 Hyoko, if he were to fight someone stronger than Gyutaro, if he could survive long enough and fight defensively, this ability can improve his combat ability to potentially rival an opponent that's outright stronger than him. I don't think this would put him outright at Upper 5 levels if he was hypothetically fully healthy, but closer to that territory than Gyutaro. The issue is the ability is stated to take some amount of undisclosed time to activate, and the stronger an opponent he's facing, the more likely he's going to get wore down by fatigue and damage, so the ability will pretty much never go off at full power, because if Tengen's way stronger than somebody, he's just gonna win the fight before he needs to use it, and if he's way weaker, he's probably going to sustain some damage, or at the very least get pretty fatigued by the time he gets the ability off. Now that we have a general idea about how powerful Tengen is, we need to actually look at how the Hashira improve throughout the series, and this is through two major ways: supernatural power-ups, such as the Demon Slayer Mark and Transparent World, and the Hashira training arc. Something I do want to go over as a massive misconception is the idea that you get massively stronger if you defeat an upper rank opponent or strong opponent, as Mitsuri sort of implies this in her conversation with Tanjiro. The localization for this translation is pretty awful, but it's made very clear in the anime that Mitsuri is being hyperbolic with this statement, and is trying to emphasize experience as something that can never be gained without just doing it yourself. Keep in mind, it's stated by the author and an extra in one of the chapters in Volume 11 that it just straight up takes on average 5 years to become a Hashira. So this would mean Tanjiro would have double the time it takes to become a Hashira in like training and experience boost, which just doesn't really make any sense. Also, Mitsuri has never fought an Upper Moon herself, nor does she know how strong Upper Moons even are, or even how well Tanjiro performed in the fight, so this should be pretty obvious, but you have those people. Going through a fight, I think, can make you stronger in slight increments, since it can push you to your limits, similar to hard training, and gives battle sense, but I don't think these would be a major boost, and for someone as seasoned as Tengen, I don't think he would have gotten very much stronger for surviving his fight with Gyutaro, if at all. One of the big ways the Hashira gets stronger in the series is the Hashira training arc, and it's never stated verbatim that this drastically increases the Hashira's strength, but it's at least heavily implied and damn near confirmed at the start of chapter 130. The narrator tells us that the Hashira have many responsibilities and that they were usually very busy, but now the demons stopped appearing to prepare for the final assault in the Infinity Castle, so the Hashira were no longer burdened by their busyness and could focus completely on training. In this brief narration, it also states verbatim that the Hashira trained to increase their skills, and now that they have an entire regiment of non-stop training to increase their skills uninterrupted, it should be a substantial increase. Not to mention, the statement also just says they only usually train with their students, and now they're training with each other, which is just a lot better training you're going to get than training with your student, and they're doing it more consistently. With that context, it kind of starts to make sense why this should be a big boost for the Hashira. Now, obviously, this is going to make Tengen stronger, but I do think he will receive some of the least amount of improvement among the Hashira in overall power and abilities from this training. So I say this for a few reasons. First is his age. He's one of the oldest Hashiras in the Demon Slayer Corps, all the way back when we see Rengoku becoming a Hashira in the Gaiden chapters. Tengen's just chilling there with the OGs. And this alone doesn't mean he can't get stronger, but it means he's probably closer to his ceiling than most other characters. Gyome is stated to be at his physical peak in the fanbook, so I don't think it's unreasonable to say Tengen is probably near his maximum potential already, with maybe room for a bit of improvement. But another reason, and this kind of goes in tandem with the previous point that I think the training would be less effective, is that he himself doesn't think he's very talented or had potential like some of these other characters in the series. Tengen makes it very clear to Gyutaro that he doesn't consider himself talented, and that others far surpass him in that category in the Demon Slayer Corps. On top of this, there's no statements about him being a special talent like there is for Muichiro or Rengoku, so this means that a lot of his abilities and overall power would have likely came from him training hard to achieve. And this also just means that his overall potential and ceiling would be lower than probably most of the other Hashira, or at the very least the ones I highlighted. So because Tengen's so experienced and he's not just a potential man, I don't think the Hashira training would be as massive as a boost as we see for other characters, but I definitely still think it would make him grow. The issue is we don't really know how much growth the characters got from the Hashira training, as we don't see anyone beforehand and then after that we can really scale anywhere. I've talked about this before, but Nakame is just stronger than Zohakatsun, or at least a more difficult opponent to fight. So you can't really use Mitsuri's gauge of strength against her. We really don't know how strong OpenEye was before the training. We really don't know the upper limits of Giyu's. We really don't know how strong some of the other characters were either. It's just, we really have no basis for how strong any of these characters were before the training. We just know they did get stronger. The other way Tengen could get substantially stronger is something that he should be able to achieve through the Hashira training, and that's the Demon Slayer mark. I have no doubt in my mind he could unlock it, as every single Hashira that participated in the training unlocked it. So if he did unlock this, this would obviously be a big speed and power boost, as it was for the other characters as well. Unfortunately, just like the training, it's a bit difficult to quantify how strong the Demon Slayer mark actually makes you, since we never see an instance where it's a concrete power increase, and I'll kind of elaborate on that. In Muichiro's case, he gets a massive mentality boost when he achieves the mark, so he's basically getting 2 power-ups at once. So we really don't know how much weight the mark was pulling in that situation, and how much the mentality boost was amping him as well. For Giyu, he's fighting an Akaza that's purposely holding back his speed, and that really can't be measured. When we see Mitsuri unlock it, she was already about as fast and strong as Zohakatsun himself, and in Tsunemi and Gyome's case, just like the Giyu situation, Kokishiba was holding back, so it's tough to measure any of these instances. If I had to guess, I would say it would probably give nearly an Upper Moon's rank of power and speed. So if you were Upper Moon 6 level like Tengen, you would just be a little bit weaker than Upper Moon 5 level. Obviously that's not objective, that's just my opinion. But if we do go with this assumption, we would also have to account for the training that he would undergo as well. And if Tengen had that on top of the mark, I think that would put him a bit past someone like Upper 5. And I should mention, I think upper ranks 6, 5, and 4 are overall very close in power, with each one having a high diff fight against the one ranked above them, and there only being extremely minor speed differences between the 3. So I think with these boosts, Tengen would probably be just above upper 4 levels for me personally, and still losing a pretty tough battle with someone like Akaza. Even with his musical score, I don't think he could beat Akaza, but if given access to the see-through world as well, with the mark and the Hashira training boost, and he survives long enough to use his score, maybe he could tough it out. I was hesitant to talk about the see-through world because that's hard to say if he could get it or not. Not every single person gets it, as opposed to the Hashira training, which was specifically designed to get the Hashira the Demon Slayer mark. Obviously there was a lot of guessing and speculation here at the end about how much of a boost these power-ups would be and how close you think the gaps in the upper ranks are. So maybe you think he'd be way stronger than someone like Akaza, maybe you think he would still lose to Zohakatsun. Maybe let me know in the comments, and I hope you all enjoyed, and peace.